The difference between amazing AI output and that frustratingly generic robotic nonsense isn't actually the model you're using. You could be on the most advanced LLM available. The key is simply how you ask the question. We have to start treating our AI like a digital magic 8 ball that just gives these quick, shallow answers.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're unpacking a truly comprehensive guide. It details Anthropic's 10 advanced rules for prompting Claude Opus 4.5. And this deep dive is customized for you, focusing on the mechanics of getting higher quality, more reliable work.
It's a fascinating look under the hood. I think most of us are only tapping, maybe 2/3 of the model's brain power because our prompts are just lazy. We're asking for coffee when we should be handing the AI a detailed multi-step recipe.
Exactly. The mission here is simple. We're moving past these vague, single-line requests and learning how to turn a large language model into a strategic thinking partner. This is all about applying clear context, specific constraints, and structured prompting to really 10x the quality of the insights you get back.
So we've broken this guide into 4 core themes. First, we'll look at adopting a genuinely collaborative mindset. Then we'll cover how to control the creative boundaries of the AI. After that, we'll delve into why breaking massive tasks down always works best. And finally, we'll analyze the secret power phrases that actually unlock Claude's deeper, more complex reasoning abilities.
Okay, let's start with that mindset shift. The first 2 rules, they deal directly with how you approach the AI, and frankly, this is where most users fail. They're either overly polite or, on the other hand, too bossy, demanding things instantly. Neither tone works well with these advanced models.
Right. We often forget that these are trained on human conversation, which means tone matters, but maybe not in the way we think. Rule 1 says we have to treat the AI like a high-performing teammate, not a servant.
That's the distinction. The core requirement is always clarity and directness, but it's got to be delivered in a friendly, cooperative tone. I mean, if you barked an order at a new team member, you wouldn't get their best thinking. But at the same time, treating the AI as if it requires constant thank yous or flowery language just adds unnecessary tokens and noise to the prompt.
So if we're correcting a document, the shift is away from just saying, correct this. Instead, we frame it as a goal, something like, please review this draft for grammatical errors and suggest 3 distinct ways I can modify the language to sound more professional and confident for a board meeting. That gives it the context and the tone.
And that leads perfectly into Rule 2, which is the principle of explicitness. If collaboration is the attitude, then details are truly your superpower. If you don't explicitly specify what you want, you basically guarantee you'll get the bland, generic answers.
The fluff.
That unusable content that everyone complains about.
Exactly. That's the key takeaway right there. Our source material emphasizes that you have to specify 3 crucial things: quantity, topic, and audience. Don't just ask for some blog post ideas. That gives the AI infinite possibilities, so it just chooses the safest, most generic path.
But if you specify, generate 10 compelling blog post titles about remote work's unexpected impact on urban planning, targeted specifically at city officials and real estate developers, well, suddenly the scope is narrow. The goal is clear, and the output quality just skyrockets.
And here's where the analysis gets deep. Using strong action verbs like generate, analyze, compare, critique, that isn't just a stylistic choice. It actually forces the model into a specific operational mode.
Correct. It tells the model precisely what cognitive function to perform. Asking the AI to analyze a financial document forces it to use different, more detailed reasoning pathways than if you just asked it to write about the document. It moves the AI from summary mode to an active operational mode.
So if clarity is everything, how critical is it to define the specific action we want it to take?
Action verbs move the AI from summary mode to operational mode.
Let's move to how we control that output itself. Because getting the model to think hard is one thing. Getting it to produce something usable is another. Rule 3 is all about defining the boundaries.
This is the paradox, right? That creativity actually thrives on constraints. When you give the AI an open-ended request, it just gets lost in all the possibilities. No structure equals chaos and, honestly, predictability.
I love the analogy from the source material. It's like putting a fence around a garden. Without limits, the output just goes wild, and it often defaults to the most common words. Constraints force it to search deeper in its knowledge space.
Yeah, think about this prompt. Write a 500-word short story about a robot detective on Mars in the style of Raymond Chandler, but do not use the words cyber, red planet, or metallic. That is a deliberate constraint.
That's fascinating. So limiting the AI's options, especially by banning common words, forces it to think harder and be more specific. It has to make these non-generic creative decisions because you've kind of tied one hand behind its back. It can't lean on those high-probability phrases.
And speaking of structure, Rule 5 demands structured output. We need to actively stop accepting those long, undifferentiated walls of text that are hard to scan or integrate into other workflows.
This is where we shift the responsibility for presentation onto the AI. Claude defaults to paragraphs because that's the most common text structure, but you can and you must request precise formats. We're talking about Markdown tables, JSON, or CSV.
Right. And for listeners who might not know, JSON or JavaScript Object Notation is just a clean, standardized format that machines and programmers use to exchange structured data. Requesting data this way is incredibly efficient.
The practical application is huge. So instead of asking for information about the last 3 Apollo missions, 15, 16, and 17 in prose, you request a structured table. Include their launch dates, the crew, and a key scientific achievement. And what you get back is immediately functional, sortable data.
But why does requesting a format like JSON or a table instantly elevate the quality of the output?
Structured formats eliminate guessing and make the output immediately usable.
That makes perfect sense.
Now, this leads us nicely to the iterative workflow. Our sources are insistent that trying to get a perfect final draft in one shot is a fundamental trap. It's unrealistic and always frustrating. So Rule 4 demands we start with an exploratory draft.
Yeah, we're moving past that all-or-nothing approach. The process has to be broken down. Always ask for an outline or a plan first. This lets you course correct early before the model burns a ton of time and tokens on a 5,000-word draft that missed the mark on Section 2.
I still wrestle with prompt drift myself. Beat. For those unfamiliar, that's when the AI slowly forgets your original constraints or the core topic as the conversation gets longer. It's incredibly painful when you realize late in the process that a major assumption was wrong and you have to just throw everything away. Getting that outline right prevents that catastrophe.
And if you apply that micro-step thinking on a larger scale, you get Rule 10, divide and conquer. Complex tasks overwhelm both the user and the model. You have to act like a conductor, breaking the entire symphony into controllable, smaller sequential stages.
Let's use the business plan example. You never ask for the whole thing at once. You first request the table of contents, then you prompt for the executive summary, then the market analysis, and only then do you ask the AI to synthesize and check for contradictions between the sections.
The efficiency boost is just dramatic. You maintain quality control at every single small step. You're reviewing the integrity of the brick, before you let it become part of the wall. It prevents costly rework later. When dealing with huge documents, what is the single biggest benefit of the divide and conquer approach?
Breaking tasks into chunks ensures high-quality control at every stage. Okay, let's pivot now to what I think is the most exciting section. Rules 6 through 9. This is the toolkit for unlocking the model's deepest reasoning capabilities. Rule 6 is simple, but it's transformative. Explain the why.
Context is king. The AI needs to understand the underlying purpose, the ultimate goal, behind your request to deliver truly tailored results. It's the difference between a tool and a partner.
Right. If you just ask for 5 coffee slogans, you get the most common answers. Great coffee. But if you explain that the beans are ethically sourced, the target audience is environmentally conscious millennials, and the medium is a specific Instagram ad, well, then everything changes.
That context shifts the entire output from generic marketing to tailored, high-value branding. It narrows the vocabulary and the concepts the AI even considers.
And Rule 7 is about controlling brevity versus verbosity. Claude has no idea if you want a detailed dissertation or a bullet point summary unless you tell it, so you have to explicitly set the level of detail up front.
We see this when comparing reasoning levels. Take a single topic, like photosynthesis. You can request deep thinking by stating, explain photosynthesis in detail for a university-level biology student, making sure to include complex concepts like C3 and C4 pathways. Or you simplify drastically. Explain photosynthesis like I'm 5 years old, using only analogies about baking in sunlight.
The third level of control, Rule 8, is providing a scaffold. This is where templates become your secret weapon because they enforce consistency. Stop asking Claude to summarize an article generally. That just leads to inconsistent lengths and formats.
Instead, you give Claude a precise format. A summary template that explicitly states, main thesis, 1 sentence. Key supporting points, 3 bullet points. And a concluding insight, 1 sentence. The AI has to fill in the blanks consistently every time, making its output easily ingestible.
And finally, Rule 9, Use power phrases and expert personas. These are the immediate triggers that unlock Claude's higher-level reasoning and access a much more sophisticated vocabulary.
The Power Phrase Toolkit is essential for advanced users. You use think step by step to explicitly force reasoning. It makes the AI lay out its internal logic before giving the final answer. You use critique your own response to trigger self-correction and iterative quality assurance.
And the persona rule. Adopt the persona of an expert in field. It primes its domain knowledge. You're telling the model which part of its massive dataset to privilege. Act as a leading constitutional lawyer is just so much better than, tell me about the First Amendment.
Whoa. Imagine scaling this iterative self-critiquing process, where the model checks its own work across 1 million queries. That is how we unlock true, reliable expertise from these systems. You are leveraging the model's ability to self-audit.
Which of the power phrases is most effective at forcing the AI to slow down its processing?
Think step by step forces the model to show its actual reasoning.
So, to summarize the big idea for you, these rules are simple, but they're powerful. Be explicit in your brief, set deliberate creative boundaries, iterate in small stages, and use specific linguistic triggers. These aren't just minor tips. They are battle-tested techniques designed to eliminate generic output.
Let's run one quick synthesis example to show how these rules stack up. Compare the vague request, tell me about Stoicism, which gives you a generic introductory paragraph, versus the correct way to prompt.
The right prompt stacks 6 of these rules together. First, we use the persona rule. Act as a university professor of ancient philosophy. Then we explain the why, the context. I am preparing a 1-hour introductory lecture for first-year students with no prior knowledge.
Next, we use divide and conquer. First, create a lecture outline with 3 main balanced sections. We constrain the scope. The outline must have a clear introduction, a body focused on practical application, and a strong conclusion. Then we demand structured output. Please format this as a nested bulleted list using Markdown headings.
And finally, we use explicitness. For each major body point, include a key Stoic figure such as Seneca and one core actionable idea.
And the result is immediate. It's structured, it's audience-appropriate content, a professional lecture outline ready to teach from. The difference between that unusable AI slop and high-quality insight is solely in the 30 seconds you took to craft that powerful prompt.
Claude is an extremely sharp tool, but it's only as effective as the person wielding it. You need to take those few extra seconds to set your brief. Add context, set boundaries, and deploy those power phrases. That's what turns a chat experience into a strategic partnership.
So think about one complex information gathering task you usually rush through in one prompt. How would breaking it into 3 smaller, constrained, and persona-driven prompts change the outcome? That's your next deep dive.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.